Critical Role reveals some horrifying secrets about their Campaign 4 characters, and MCDM announces a brand new TTRPG.
Yes!
Before we dive into new RPG goodness and dark, dangerous Critical Role backstories, why not take a second to hit those like and subscribe buttons? It's fast, it's free, and it really helps us cut through all that AI slop on YouTube. And then, let's dive into the news. Critical Role Campaign 4 Episode 13 returned us to the Seeker's Table, but it also revealed some horrifying and heartbreaking secrets about the characters, including one from a completely different table. We got a fascinating scene with Bolaire to start with, as we flash back to the moment he decided to live for himself and be, for lack of a better word, free, after he was inspired by a play his host was watching. But that freedom also revealed how cold and murderous the mask could truly be, as he slaughtered the entire company of people his host was traveling with in their sleep and burned all their bodies just to make a clean getaway, which was perhaps the bit of leverage that Thiazi was using to force his cooperation, and the reason why he warned Hal and others about Bolaire. We also got a heartbreaking glimpse of a time when Sir Julian and his father had an actual relationship and a bond, where his father cheered on his success in the Grand Melee tournament when young Julian took third place before turning 13 years old, celebrating his son's achievement loudly and publicly and spraying wine all over the place, only to then flash to the present, where Julian now appears to be cursed with something traveling within his shadow. Could that once again be his father? Killed in front of his eyes with necromantic magic, and now perhaps trapped or tethered to the shadow of his own son to haunt him still? It's exactly the kind of brutal, emotional pipe bomb Brennan would just drop on his players, so we cannot wait to see once Sir Julian discovers his condition. But the main chunk of the story was the Taconis spinning their version of events of House Royce returning to Ferry when questioned by House Einfassen, and the continued strange behavior by certain members of the Einfassen household as they asked the party to stay while they investigate these two differing accounts of events. Eventually, with an undead cat left to spy on the house, the party does escape to the sanctuary of the local sect of druids in the city after Octus hears his sisters have come to House Einfassen, and after discovering that the bird sent last week did not go to Hal and Dolmakiar, as the vulture caught up with the pigeon in its roost far too quickly, and its location must have been much closer. So now they are in the sanctuary of the druids, but even here, they may not be safe, as there are various circles within the druidic orders that all have their own agendas, and Saisha basically lied to them when asked if she was bringing trouble to those within by staying here when she told them no, as the Taconis are in town, and even if House Einfassen may have been seeking to avoid trouble with the druids, the Taconis are wiping out full sundered houses and probably wouldn't care at all. So everything is setting up for yet another tragic massacre, and next week could be a very bloody episode. Also, Critical Role seems to be going with shorter lengths on these non-combat Seeker episodes, with both of them so far clocking in at around the 3.5 hour mark, a full hour shorter than most of the Soldier's Table episodes, which could be a smart way of editing them so they keep the drama high and the viewers engaged even without any combat for the fans to follow. So we'll be keeping an eye out to see if that editing trend continues next week.
I will keep my eye on you.
And in other big news, MCDM has announced its first new TTRPG since the launch of Draw Steel, their new dungeon delving RPG called Crows, which James Intricaso talked with us about briefly last month. This new RPG is designed as a sort of press your luck dungeon delving adventure, where your inventory slots also act as your health pool, and you get experience based on how much treasure you can drag out of the dungeon and still survive. Using a largely D10 based system that is similar to the game Knave, but with some pretty dire consequences for low rolls added as well, it gives off big Darkest Dungeon or Kingdom Death Monster vibes to us. Although the character classes are more flexible, as any character can use any equipment or loot they find regardless of class. It's just that some classes make much better use of specific loot than others. There's even an element of base building as you invest in the town that acts as your headquarters to open up new options for equipment, to retire your PCs somewhere to give big boons to the next crop of explorers, and other options. This post-apocalyptic survival horror dungeon crawler will force players to make some extremely tough choices about keeping their loot to power themselves up or just escaping with their lives and hoping to delve again another day. and we can't wait to get our hands on a copy as production begins in earnest over at MCDM. And you can head over to the Backer Kit page right now to be notified when their crowdfunder goes live later this summer. And that's all the fantasy news we have time for this week. Let us know what your favorite story was down in the comment section, and don't forget to hit those like and subscribe buttons.